Hello there. So, can't make it to class tonight, so I have to do this by video. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that, some instances where we had some issues with our asphalt mix and with our asphalt placement and how we came over them. So, we had one job where we had received our mix to the site and we went to compact it and found that for some reason, and we didn't know why, the pavement over compacted. So when we actually compacted it, it ended up over compacting, which meant lower air voids. We basically, it was a super paved mix, and when we compacted we found that the air voids were approximately 2%. And we didn't know why this happened because we didn't do anything different. So basically we traced it back, we talked to the guy at the plant, and he decided to then tell me that they'd have to change in their aggregates that they were after using in the mix. So what they ended up doing was their supplier had changed over to what they call a VSI crusher, which is a vertical can't think of the name, I'll tell you now in a few minutes before the end of the video, so I still get the marks. But basically this type of crusher, it's a vertical centrifugal thing. So your big rocks are up here, and this is your crusher. So they go down in to get crushed, and there's this kind of a centrifuge that's spinning, and it has all these outlets. And what happens is these bigger pieces of rock go down into this, and this is spinning at huge forces, and it throws this material out to the outside. The rocks that are out here already collide with the rocks that are coming out of this. It basically smashes the rocks into pieces. So then you get your aggregates out of that. So this was a super paved mix, and this really only applies to super paved because of the way the designs are mixed. But what happened was the rock and the aggregate that comes out of this is very uniform in shape. So you got these brick, almost like Lego brick shaped pieces of aggregate, like they're very uniform. So this means that they kind of slide by each other, they over compact. So what ended up happening was when you put all these together, all these pieces fit together so well, which means there's no room for air voids. So all this air eventually wasn't there, so obviously that makes the pavement brittle, and if there's any force over it, you end up with rutting. So the pavement starts bleeding, and it's pretty bad. So what we ended up doing was we asked them, could we basically use the same mix. So we had our gradation. So it was a super paved mix. So you have our gradations. It was 19 mm, your half inch, which is 12.5, all the way down, right, to your lower aggregates, lower gradations. So what we ended up doing was we took the 12.5 out, we filtered this out, and we got our 12.5 mil clear crushed rock, which basically comes in a cone. It was the normal way they crush these is in a cone fed machine, and big rock comes down to this, and then there's these compactors here. So the rocks come down, this crusher basically squeezes and crushes the rock, and out comes your smaller pieces of aggregate. But these, when you do it like this creates angular kind of aggregates with all weird shapes, and it basically follows the weakness in the rock. When they squash it, if there's a weakness in the joint or in the rock, they'll crush it and it'll come out all angular. So what we did was we took this 12.5 mil clear crush that was available, and we replaced it with this. And even though, so we have what happened was this VSI method produced all these Lego brick types. So you had your 19 mm, these ones were a bit smaller Lego bricks, all the way down to your fines, where it doesn't really matter as much. But what we ended up doing was we took this one out, 12.5 mil, X that out, and we put in our angular rock, all these weird shapes, and we mixed that into our design. And then we done some tests on it, and we found that this is after working. What basically happens is with the angular rocks is they stack on top of each other at funny angles, and it creates a bridge, and all these funny shapes mean that it's not easy for the asphalt to squeeze out and squeeze that air out. So it meant that we were able to get the air voids that we need. And the reason you need air voids is because it's basically an elasticity sort of a thing. You know, when you drive over a pavement, it's I suppose the force that goes down, asphalt will move. When you drive a truck over it, it's going to go somewhere. But if there's no air voids in there, the asphalt has nowhere to go except for out. The actual oil will just has nowhere to go except for out. Where if there's some little air void, you squeeze it down, it can accordion on itself, and it makes for longer durability. So that was one of our technical side of the problems that we had. The other problem was just a job that I did about probably last November. We had paving. It was $500,000 job for a potash plant. It was a very interesting job. And let's get rid of this. Oh. Here at BA Blacktop, we don't have high-tech equipment such as whiteboards that actually work. So anyway, we were bidding this job. We bid it straight as it was, and it's a potash treatment plant facility. So you have a huge, big, giant industrial structure, and here's the shape of it. It's basically a big factory with all this potash that comes in. It gets loaded in from a conveyor belt like this, and off, and you know the material comes off like this in there, and then there's a big bucket sort of thing, and there's a scooper on the bottom, and this scoops up the potash off, puts it into a ship wherever, you know, and the ship goes off to China or wherever they're selling the stuff from. So we end up coming out here. We paved. It's not quite as steep to this. This is more like a 1-to-1 slope, so 45 degrees like this. So we had to pave on the edge. Quite a difficult job. But anyway, what ended up happening was we ended up finishing our paving, and they said that our pavement wasn't to the specified elevations. So if our pavement was supposed to be where the blue is, we were off by a factor. Turned out that factor was actually less than 5 millimeters, which in a pavement thickness of 50 mil thick, it was 50 mil per lift, so it was 100 mil thick. It was 100 mil thick. So anyway, this crazy speck on a slope, how are you going to get it this close? It was a pretty difficult job. And all down here, they found that when they surveyed it, it was off spec. So it was in the contract that I had to be to that ratio and to within 5 mil. So we kind of had a bit of an argument. So we all sat down at the meeting. So they found out that there was some areas here. It wasn't a full swath. It was an area here, maybe a little bit here, all here. And we worked it out, and we said that this, to mill and replace it. So we're going to mill and do a surface overlay. They figured that to replace this was going to be $120,000. So we went down, we sat down at the meetings, and we were trying to discuss and tell them why we didn't need to replace this, and to have this within 5 millimeters, who cares? So Mr. Big Shot Engineer is there, and he's like, it's in the spec and you're going to rip it out and do it again for nothing. So we were obviously arguing. So we asked him why. Why does this have to be within 5 mil? What difference does it make? Considering the whole structure is sinking anyway. So Mr. Big Shot Engineer came along and he said, well, when this scooper thing comes down and runs along the floor like this, that if it's not the exact amount of distance off the floor, well then there's going to be some distance or gap down here that leaves material. So basically this whole facility will have, if it's, you know, an extra 5 mil off, there'll be an extra 5 mil of potash that they never get to pick up and they never get to sell. So that was the nail in the coffin for that argument, because he wanted us to do 120 grand worth of work. And then his mouth opened and he said this. So the vice president here asked, how much area is there? And basically gave him the areas. So we took our survey, he took the area, and he said, how much does potash cost? So we basically took the amount of volume of this material that he was saying was going to go to waste because of our ignorance and stupidity. It worked out to be about $4,000. So that was the end of that argument. We told him we'd buy that ash off him, and we give him $4,000 for the potash that we were after messing up on him, and we left. So we still did okay on that job. So that's the other side. The less technical way of fixing a problem is just through negotiation. But anyway, so any questions? Okay, good stuff.